Slopstream media meltdown. The GOP sweep of presidency, Senate, and the House from here definitely won't be easy. China unveiled a J-35 jet built with stolen U.S. technology. This is Dr. David D. Schein for the special episode of Saving America with our weekly update. The GOP sweep of the presidency, Senate, and the House from here definitely won't be easy. A key element is that Trump comes into a situation with a deeply divided country that does not get cured in one day or 1 year and maybe never. The pressure is on. Trump and his team must perform in 18 months, not 2 years or 4 years. A president often loses one or both houses of Congress in the midterm election. Let's not do that this time, folks. The key factor is the so-called mandate is very thin. They do not have 60 votes in the Senate. They barely have a majority in the House. In fact, the Senate is already off to a questionable start by appointing John Thune to the lead instead of Rick Scott. We shall see what impact that has on much needed reform legislation across the board. Trump's first ever appointment was a great one. He named the first ever female White House chief of staff. He selected his campaign manager, Susie Wiles, to be his White House chief of staff. In fact, little mentioned by any media, much less the slopstream media. She was only the second woman to head a successful presidential campaign. Well, guess who was the first? Right, Kellyanne Conway, for Trump's 2016 victory. Next, Trump's border czar will be Tom Homan, who will reprise his role from the first Trump administration. In a fiery speech, he announced that those here legally should pack their bags. Everyone knows you cannot deport 10 million illegals overnight. With the focus on criminals, I think that will be an effective strategy, especially if we can keep them from coming back into the country. If not, I favor warehousing them at Gitmo, not our prisons. Keep in mind that illegals should be afforded zero constitutional protections. Time to get tough. Trump announces Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the new Government Efficiency Department. This is probably the highest profile part of the whole story of appointments. Now, how will this be done legally will be entertaining in itself. Keep in mind that in my first book, Decline of America, I argued for cutting the U.S. government by 1/3 and eliminating defined benefit pensions for employees. My opinion has not changed. If any, it's been retrenched. Trump picks Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. This is clearly a reward for her high-profile switch from the Democrat Party to the GOP. I do expect her to do a good job. She could also be a presidential or VP candidate in the future. In another interesting selection, Trump names Fox News host Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. That seemed odd until I was reminded that he's a legitimate military veteran. Former Army National Guard captain who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He earned 2 Bronze Stars and a combat infantryman's badge. He holds degrees from Princeton and Harvard. He wrote the bestseller War on Warriors regarding left-wing policies undermining the military. I have confidence in his commitment to unwoke the military and get rid of any of the remaining vestiges of DEI. Trump named John Ratcliffe as CIA director. Given the mess in the FBI and the CIA over the last decade, this is a positive step. I hope it turns out well. Ratcliffe, an attorney, served as director of national intelligence during the first Trump term. Previously a Republican congressman from Texas, he could also have been put in charge of the FBI, but I think he'll do a fine job over at cleaning up the remnants of the CIA. Kristi Noem, governor from South Dakota, is another great GOP female leader. I think she will appoint herself well and join other strong women on the Saving America list for future presidents and vice presidents. Senator Marco Rubio will be Secretary of State. My only concern here is that he's so strong in the Senate. I hate to see him pulled out of that position to go to Secretary of State, but we need someone great in that position. Let's see how that goes. And then the controversial Matt Gaetz will be the Attorney General. If you recall his tough questioning of James Biden and others, you can anticipate some interesting actions to come. Remember, I do not want the Comer Committee investigation of Joe Biden to go away. I feel that he sold out his country and anything he owns should be taken away from him. And I know there's been all this talk about not retribution. Folks, this is justice, not retribution. Biden should pay for his crimes. And I say crimes based on the information that I have. Of course, that still has to be proved in a court of law. Kamala Harris campaign paid Oprah Winfrey $1 million. However, Winfrey said she received not a dime. For the live streaming event in September, my production company, Harpo, was asked to bring in set design, lights, cameras, microphones, crew, producers, and every other item necessary, including the benches and the chairs we sat on to put on a live production. And I did not take a personal fee. However, the people who worked on the production needed to be paid and were. End of story, end of quote. Hey, folks, she owns Harpo Productions. She is a billionaire. Did it really cost $1 million to put up a temporary set? The clowns in the Harris administration blew over $1 billion on the campaign, and reports are they still owe $20 million. Slopstream media meltdown. I'm not sure the claims of the conservative talking heads and networks are completely correct, but we may soon stop referring to the incompetence at NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, etc. as the legacy media. Parallel to this, virtually all the polls were wrong. It's time for the adults in the room to take over. Might be nice to find a network that covers a broad range of news. I find that I prefer local newscasts lately because they cover real news that impacts me and not the repetitive stuff. In addition, I am here on an internet network and not TV or radio, but the numbers for the show, even in the early going, are pretty impressive. Think about the impact of Trump on the Joe Rogan experience. Many point out that one appearance at that huge contrast between a mostly hidden and always scripted Harris and a much looser Trump. But the media itself is also part of the story. Rogan's show was not on a TV channel and not even a radio channel. It was on the internet, folks, podcast. I equally criticize Newsmax and the new online conservative media outlets for being Trump all the time. They missed a lot of real news as well. Fox is all over the place these days, but unfortunately not in a positive way. They need to find their way forward. An interesting report from the Los Angeles Times promises a new editorial board, a balanced one. Remember the brouhaha over the rag not making a recommendation in this year's presidential race. The owner, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, has decided to emphasize different views based on his posting on X. We shall see if this comes to pass. Keep in mind that he is in one of the most left-wing markets in the country. He may be fair and balanced and bankrupt. Let's see what happens. Very disturbing story. China to unveil J-35 jet built with stolen U.S. technology. This is from an important report from the Washington Times that has received far too little attention. The story reports that Chinese military hackers stole more than 50 terabytes of data from U.S. government and defense contractor networks, data that included details of the F-35 stealth radar and engine secrets, as well as details of the F-35AN AAS-37 electro-optical distributed aperture system. Yes, folks, that's a mouthful. Many other critical aspects that were incorporated in the U.S. stealth jet have been taken by the Chinese. The Red Chinese first incorporated it into their J-20 jets and now into their J-35 jets. Anybody notice it's the same number even as we're using in the U.S. military? We have the best technology and we have to stop giving it away. People need to get fired, go to jail, and in the right cases, I favor military tribunals and prompt executions. I'm a staunch supporter of the death penalty in saving our country from losing a potential future war with Red China is at that level, in my opinion. So the Saving America Dunce Award this week goes to Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. His ridiculous comment, "If you come for my people, you come through me." This has been interpreted in various ways. And one, this clown will violate federal law by blocking immigration enforcement. If he does that, I hope he'll be arrested and tried as the criminal, because that's what he would be. But his statement may be broader than that when he is addressing social issues. That would seem to address abortion. But Trump already has said he would not interfere in the state's actions in this regard. Other Democrat state and local leaders have made similarly stupid comments. Think about it, folks. Why not say we will do what we can to heal the country after the divisive 4 years that we have all lived through? Democrats pushed Sotomayor to resign from the Supreme Court. Well, it must be great to be a female liberal appointee to the U.S. Supreme Court. That is, if you are not 70 years old and a diabetic. The rumor is that Democrat senators and other power brokers want Justice Sonia Sotomayor to resign right away so Mr. Dementia himself, Joe Biden, can plant another leftist judge on SCOTUS before the Senate changes party majority, and of course, then Trump takes office. The good news is that as of today, she's not having any of that. And apparently the Democrat lynch mob has not been sent to her house. The way they took old Joe Biden off the ballot just a few months ago. Remember that, folks? Folks, figure it out. If you're in the way of a Democrat, your loyalty and performance does not count for a thing. Some more bad news. I mentioned in a previous Saving America that Franchise Group Incorporated filed for bankruptcy, and at least for now, 3 of their brands, the Vitamin Shop, Pet Supplies Plus, and Buddy's Home Furnishings, are expected to continue with business, at least at the moment. However, a 4th brand, American Freight, has announced they will be closing all 328 of their locations, and apparently liquidation sales are going on now. More fun than a barrel of monkeys. A South Carolina lab recaptures 30 escaped monkeys as of this recording, but hey, 13 are still loose. This lab breeds the little rhesus macaw monkeys for medical research purposes. The positive part is they generally hung around in their neighborhood and tend not to be harmful to humans. In fact, they were talking to their buddies who were back in the cages while they were running around on the perimeter of the property. I found it interesting that the batch are all females and weigh about 7 pounds each. Folks, this is it for Saving America special weekly update with your host, Dr. David D. Schein. Hey, if you've enjoyed this, subscribe on your favorite platform.